Welcome back to the Lisa Wexler Show. The call-in number is 203-661-5051.
Well, they say that all politics is local. And let me tell you personally, as a veteran of local politics, I know that to be true. I ran myself for the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I've run for 2 elections as local probate judge, and I really understand the nuances of what it's like to win a local election. But it seems right now that we have got a heated controversy. Things are happening with respect to our Board of Ed here in Greenwich, to the point where I've read not 1 but 2 very detailed articles in recent print press over the last couple of days. Peter Bernstein has been kind enough to come in the studio now and join us and tell us his side of the story. I want to tell you a little bit about Peter. Peter is a compliance professional, a former prosecutor, an experienced lawyer. He is presently senior counsel on the business ethics and compliance team at MasterCard. Before that was a compliance leader for General Electric. Just so you know what compliance is, the compliance attorneys are the ones who literally look at the law and make sure their client, the company, is complying with the law. He worked at Travelers Companies. He was an assistant attorney general for New York State and spent 10 years in private practice in D.C., but he's lived here in Greenwich, Peter, for 14 years?
Yes, that's right.
And you have 2 children?
I do, both in the public schools.
And they both attend the public schools. Now, you have been a member of the Board of Ed since when?
2013, so 4 years.
And you were elected?
I was elected in a competitive election.
Okay, and you were nominated by the Republicans?
I was, and in that election, actually, candidate Peter Scher petitioned his way onto the ballot. Interestingly, nobody got in the way of that. Everybody signed the petitions. He had more than enough signatures, was on the ballot. And that same year, a Democratic candidate, Laura Erickson, also petitioned her way on the ballot. Nobody stopped her, got her signatures, and was duly elected by the voters when there was truly a voter choice.
So, okay. So, and when you say choice, so typically do the Republicans nominate, or even the Democrats, the amount of seats that are available to be run so that there isn't a competition? How does it typically work here?
So it's interesting. Every 2 years, 2 Republican seats and 2 Democratic seats are up.
Okay.
Historically in Greenwich, there have not been much in the way of competitive elections. It's usually the parties each nominate 2, while they could technically nominate up to 4 candidates. There's traditionally no primary in Greenwich for any office. In fact, there would only be a primary if there were more than 5 candidates for the Board of Ed, more than 6 candidates for the BET, and so on. Starting in the election I ran in 2013, because people petitioned on, you actually, as a voter, would have a choice in Greenwich. Then you fast forward to 2 years ago in 2015. Both parties looked at it again, and the Republicans actually nominated 3. No controversy.
Yes, that's when I first got to GCH. I remember that.
Right. 3 candidates came forward. 3 candidates were nominated. No controversy.
Okay.
And
only 2 could get on.
Only 2 could get on.
But the voters had a choice.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So this time around, they only nominated 2, the Republicans?
Yes. They decided to only nominate 2. And
did they nominate 2 incumbents?
They nominated 1 incumbent. I would be the other incumbent.
Why were you not nominated, Peter?
Because I did not vote for something that they are calling a charter change to change the way we elect the Board of Ed. Basically, right now, we have a split Board of Ed, the closest thing you can have in Connecticut to a nonpartisan Board of Ed. Under state law, you can't have a nonpartisan Board of Ed, so we have a 4-4 split.
In other words, under state law, you can't have it like in RTM. You have to have a political party to be on a Board of Ed?
Exactly.
And so we have in Greenwich always, at any one time, 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans, which led to a stalemate earlier this year in terms of choosing a leader, correct?
Yes, it did. And in fact, a lot of people have walked around saying the reason we need the charter change is the board votes 4-4 along party lines all the time. That's false. People have done studies, but I can tell you, having been on the board for 4 years, having been a watcher of the board for many years before that the board typically only splits when it comes to the chair vote. And that's only happened in the past couple of years. As a matter of fact, the parties used to actually cooperate when it came to chair. Traditionally and historically had been a Republican because they far outnumber the Democrats in town in terms of active voters and people voting during the election.
So the Democrats would exceed and allow a Republican chair, but then that stopped and then there became this stalemate.
Right. And so the proponents of this charter change say, well, we want the voters to elect be able to elect a majority party. So in one election, they would elect 3-1, the next one 2-3. It's
so
very
that it would end up being 5-3.
Being 5-3. Very, very complicated to explain. But what they don't tell people is this isn't about choice, because the parties would go to just nominating the number of people for the number of open seats. So basically, if you could potentially win 3 seats in the election, you would nominate 3. Meaning
see.
There's really not a choice. If the Republicans can win 3 and they nominate 3, where is that a choice for voters? Voters actually are disenfranchised by that. The Republican Town Committee has been making the decisions as to who gets on the ballot. Those meetings happen. They're not very well publicized. I don't know, I don't know how people find out. If you check the website, it lists the general meeting. It doesn't say this is the night we're deciding who's on the ballot. And you don't know who the elected Republican Town Committee members are. That's not traditionally been something they've put on the website. And even as a candidate, I had to ask multiple times to get the list of the actual Republican Town Committee members.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So they met, and from your point of view, did they consult you? Did they say, Peter, we would like to give you the nod, but will you consider changing your mind on this? Was there any conversation at all?
No. In fact, I reached out and attempted to reach out to each and every member of the Republican Town Committee via phone call and then a follow-up email. I did not have much success with getting returned calls or returned emails. The decisions get made. I don't know how. It's a mystery to me and probably a mystery to most people. And when you get to the election in November, unless I'm able to petition my way on, unless Leslie Tarkington is able to collect enough signatures to petition her way to force a primary for the BET, the only offices voters will be having a choice for would be the first selectman and the tax collector, because the parties would have at that point only nominated enough people for the actual seats for the Board of Ed, for the BET, and so on.
All right, we're chatting with Peter Bernstein. So we're getting a little bit into the arcane situation of local politics, but I'm fascinated with this. This is my bread and butter. I love this stuff. So, Peter, so let's go back a minute. So the Republicans, they turned their back on you. Who did they nominate instead of you?
Peter Scher, who's an 8-year incumbent.
And is currently the chair, correct?
Currently the chair,
okay.
as appointed by the selectmen.
Okay, I remember, yes.
And then Jason Auerbach, who's a RTM member from District 5.
Okay, and Jason would be the newcomer.
Jason would absolutely be a newcomer.
So when that happened, you made a decision that you wanted to petition to get on the ballot.
Absolutely. As allowed under state law,
okay.
I could petition to get on the ballot. It's an odd thing, though, because the Republican Party has only nominated 2 candidates. If I do collect enough signatures, I go right to the ballot in November. There is
as a Republican.
As a Republican, and there is no primary.
Okay. So, and how many signatures do you need?
You need 637, which is 5% of the registered Republicans in town.
How many do you have so far?
I'm still collecting. I'm set back, as you know, by what's been going on.
No, that's what I want to hear about. So,
Absolutely.
What happened over the weekend?
So, starting Friday night and continuing on, I basically have been harassed in my attempts to collect signatures to the point where it's really impeded my ability to access voters, allow voters access to me. I've been chased around the beach. I've had signs following me. We've had people physically interrupting conversations that we've been having with voters. At the dump on Saturday, we would have conversations with voters, and people would intrude on the conversations and say, do you want to hear the other side of the story? Or he's not telling the truth, or he's not about choice. Just interrupting, physically getting into the same space as the voters, where voters would throw their hands up and walk away and say, I want no part of this. So basically prohibiting my access. That's my free speech right there. And it's the free speech right of the voters to hear that. It's that behavior that's really at the heart of this. Following with that is the signs, the chasing me around, basically blocking access the other day at a stairwell at the train station, so that as people were coming down, I can't even get to them. There's a picture in the paper. You can see me standing in the background. I can't get to the people because they're blocking that stairwell.
Who's the they? Who are these people?
So the named defendants in the injunction, which I'm sure you want to talk about, are Jason Auerbach, Peter Scher, Randall Smith, all members of the RTC. The Peter Scher and Jason Auerbach are both the endorsed candidates. And then we've also named the Secretary of State, the town clerk, and the registrar in their official capacities. Because we're seeking 2 things with this. We're seeking an injunction to prevent this type of behavior from continuing to occur and inhibiting our access to voters and inhibiting our ability to collect those signatures.
And you retained an attorney to do this.
I did. I'm an attorney myself. I know you are as well. I don't take this lightly. I've never been a plaintiff before. I've never had any desire to be a plaintiff in my life.
And you went to Superior Court.
We went to Superior Court in Stamford. Now, I'm held to a higher standard as a lawyer, right? I have a duty to not file frivolous lawsuits. My lawyer has a duty to not file frivolous lawsuits. We wouldn't be doing this but for the serious nature of the actions of these individuals. And it basically has put me in a position where I've lost time.
How much time do you have? Do you have until September?
No, I have until August 9th, which is next Wednesday at 4 p.m.
That's it?
Because it's under the primary rules. This is the oddest thing. There will be no primary. There are no other candidates seeking to petition their way on as Republicans.
Oh, I see.
So there will be no primary. Now, I didn't tell you about Sunday at Todd's Point, which I really want to get the point across.
Yes, tell us.
Sunday at Todd's Point, went with my family. Had some people visiting from out of town. I bought my passes. Don't worry, everybody. And we get to Todd's Point, and I'm not even to the place where I've got my chair set out yet. And the caretaker of Todd's Point, a man I've never met in my life, but a very nice man, came over to ask me to not collect signatures because they were getting complaints about the people with the signs and who were already collecting signatures for their petition. So this is Jason Arbach and some other folks.
Wait, what are they collecting petition? We're chatting with Peter Bernstein. I don't understand. They're already on the ballot. What are they collecting?
Well, it turns out about the same day I went and collected my petition from Town Hall so that I could get on the ballot, they decided to start a petition for their charter change movement. There is no action before the selectmen at this point. In fact, there's a committee the selectmen have appointed. They're working with town council. So there's nothing actively going on at the moment with charter change.
And so why do you think they did this?
It's a quiet period. They're doing it to interfere and cause confusion with voters, and it absolutely has. Voters who have talked to them, who I've tried to approach afterwards, says, I just talked to the other guy. I've already signed a petition, and they walk away. So basically poisoning the water for me and making it impossible to get these signatures.
And the beach caretaker asked you to not
circulate
your petition? The beach caretaker
asked me to not circulate my petition.
Do we know the law here, Peter Bernstein?
We do know the law here, and as a matter of fact, there's been some great quotes in the paper. The first selectman, the registrar of voters have all made very clear it is my free speech right to actually ask people to sign. It's not solicitation. I'm not trying to sell them anything.
It's political speech.
It's political speech.
The most highly protected speech under the U.S. Constitution.
Thank you for saying that. It saved me from having to do it. So it has been a real challenge to get to people. I've approached people, in fact, just this morning at the train station, approached people and say, I don't want to put my name on that because I don't want to get drawn into it.
Is that right?
And so basically at this point, I am asking for people to volunteer to help collect signatures, to sign the petitions, and generally just support us. I mean, retaining a lawyer is not cheap. Trust me, I know. I've been that lawyer. I have to pay for that. I have to raise money in my campaign to pay for that, or it's coming out of my pocket. Okay, the time that we are spending to do this, we are volunteers.
Do you think you'll get a stay, which is to say a delay of the deadline? Is that what you're seeking in court?
Well, that's part of the injunction. However, the court in Stamford has given us a hearing date of August 21st, which is after the collection point.
So what do you do?
Well, my attorney's been working with the clerk of the court, and what was decided today is if all parties agreed, there would be a hearing on Monday. However, we're not sure whether the other guys will agree. Not sure how motivated they are, because if I don't get the signatures by Wednesday afternoon, they automatically get placed on the ballot, and I will need an order of the court to get more time if I don't have enough signatures.
We're chatting with Peter Bernstein. For those who don't know the jargon we're talking about, an injunction is an order. It's a court order, and it basically tells somebody to either do or stop doing something, usually to stop doing something. So when we say an injunction, Peter Bernstein is seeking a court order to stop this interference with your campaign. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right.
So, and you've only got a few days. Do you have a staff of people that are trying to get your petition signatures?
So it's not a staff. It's a
group of volunteers.
It's a ragtag band of volunteers, and I love each and every one of them. They've been great. I want to take the opportunity to thank them because I couldn't do this all alone, especially with people hounding me at every move, watching me and following me as I move around. I mean, honestly, that's what happened at the beach. My 15-year-old nephew went home to Massachusetts and told my mother, his grandmother, how afraid he was.
He was afraid?
Yeah. I mean, they were following me everywhere I went at the beach, making sure I didn't take my petition out of the bag. And by the way, I didn't, because the caretaker had told me not to. So
you obeyed the request.
I did obey.
You did not make a scene.
No, I did not make a scene. It was unnecessary to make a scene, but it did cost me a day of collecting signatures. Saturday, they cost us the ability to collect signatures. Those are two prime weekend days. And by the way, Todd's Point, gorgeous day on Sunday, right? full so much that they had to close the parking lot. And those are Greenwich people, right? Those are where the voters are. That's where the voters are. The train stations, that's where the voters are. Holly Hill Dump, that's where the voters are.
Totally.
And if you stop somebody from doing that, I'm not sure how you do this other than door to door. And quite frankly, I've got a family. I have a full-time job. I am a volunteer on the Board of Education. This is something I do because, one, I'm passionate about it, and two, because my kids go to school here, and this is my way of paying that back. And this is just not the kind of politics one would expect in Greenwich or anywhere.
So, Peter Bernstein, you had started out by saying that in 2013, to your knowledge, there were other petitions. They didn't have a problem. Why are you having a problem?
I don't know. I think the times have changed. I mean, we've seen this on a national scale for sure, but now it's here, and everybody should be aware of it. Honestly, it's... Are
you saying you think there's an intimidation factor in politics now?
Well, there's certainly an intimidation factor, and that's what this is meant to be. It's meant to discourage people from signing this petition, to confuse them so they don't, and to make sure that the two-party endorsed candidates, who, by the way, are leading this charge, automatically get elected. If I do not petition my way on, people need to understand there will be no debate and no discussion. None of you need to turn up to vote for the Board of Ed in November if I don't get on, because they will automatically be elected. That is how this works. And so I don't know what their motivation is at this point other than to keep me off the ballot. Their signs, their petition for charter change, I understand that. That's a protected speech right too. They can do that. It's the infringing on conversations. It's the intimidation that is problematic here. And that I hope will stop. Okay, I don't have any problem with their petition, but I'm going to say this. Their signs that they've been carrying around to support their petition, if it's about charter change, why do they have my name on it?
Why do they have your name on it?
You'd have to ask them.
What does the sign say?
Let's see. We've seen I'd have to pull my phone out of my pocket.
I want to see. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you'll just give me a moment.
We're chatting with Peter Bernstein, and we're having a conversation about local politics that have resulted in a lawsuit because Mr. Bernstein is alleging that he has been improperly interfered with in trying to gather signatures for a petition that he needs to get on the ballot.
So one of the signs says, Bernstein now, he's for choice. So I'm not sure how that relates to their charter change. Another sign that they had propped up in the back of a pickup truck at the dump on Saturday said, Republicans support Republicans, Democrats support Bernstein. As far as I know, many, many Republicans voted for me in 2013, and I hope have the opportunity to do so again. I was duly elected.
Peter Bernstein, what is the official position of the local Republican Town Committee with respect to this?
So the RTC issued a statement the other day. It didn't go far enough. It basically didn't call out a lot of this behavior. It did talk about people's rights to petition their way onto the ballot. The party has two candidates doing this for two different offices. This is about voter access, and we basically are not giving voters access to people on the ballot by preventing from getting signatures.
If somebody listening here to WGCH would like to sign your petition, how would they do so?
So there's a couple of ways. I've got a Facebook page. In this day and age, I guess you have to have one. Peter Bernstein for Greenwich Board of Education.
But they can't electronically sign.
No, but they can get in touch with us, and that's certainly a good idea.
What's it called again?
Peter Bernstein for Greenwich Board of Education.
Okay.
I've got an email address, bernsteinballot@gmail.com. Again, it's Bernstein, B-E-R-N.
Is that a new account, Peter?
That might just be a new account. So it's Bernstein, B-E-R-N-S-T-E-I-N, ballot, B-A-L-L-O-T @gmail.com. Tonight, I'm going to be at Roger Sherman Baldwin Park. Come for jazz, sign a petition.
Last night it was canceled due to the pending thunderstorms. But today it's going to be there.
I'll tell you, I was there last night outside of the Arch Street Teen Center. There's also a production going on there,
I know,
comedy troupe of Fiddler. And I got to tell you,
amazing. The offbeat players, we've had them in here.
They had a packed house last night.
Did they?
If you're looking for something to do,
come. They do a phenomenal job. My listeners know the offbeat players assemble a cast of disabled and non-disabled people, and they do an amazing job.
So, and I think they're on the next two nights at 7:30 if you're looking for an activity in town.
So you're going to be around there collecting signatures.
Absolutely.
And you'll be at Roger Sherman Baldwin Park.
Tonight, I'll probably be at the dump, or somebody will be at the dump on Friday, Saturday. We will be all over town. If you get a knock on your door and you're a registered Republican, please open it. Please help us. If you're interested in helping us collect, which is something something we desperately need, because I'd like to not just hit the 637. I want to go over. I want people to speak out against this type of activity. This is exactly what we try to teach our kids about bullying in schools. If we're going to tolerate this behavior from adults, how are we going to explain to our kids why it's wrong for them? And these are the endorsed candidates of the Republican Party behaving like this.
How does it make you feel about your party affiliation? You're a Republican.
Quite honestly, disgusted. I am disgusted. I've watched at the national level. I lived and worked in Washington, D.C. for a long time. I thought I was done with politics. I moved here. I thought, what better way to give back than to get involved in the community? I was a PTA president. I don't have an interest in politics. I don't aspire to higher office. Let me make clear to every one of your listeners, I do not aspire to higher office, but I do aspire to making our schools better. We spend a lot of money in Greenwich, the most per pupil in the state, and we should demand that we get results. And so I've spent the past 4 years looking to get better results, and I wish this were all about talking about education with you today. I would love to talk about student achievement. We've gone up significantly in the past year in math and language arts. We've had great success. We have started using the data we've collected to actually have student growth models. Nobody's asking me about that right now.
Well, now it's about you getting on the ballot.
Absolutely, and I hope to force that so that I can have a debate with these guys. What do they stand for? What do you expect from them? Quite honestly, we've hired a new superintendent. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Hold me accountable for her. But to do that, I need to be here to support her, to give her guidance, to make that successful. We have had major superintendent turnover in this town, and part of it is because of the dysfunction on the board by certain board members. We need to put an end to that. We shouldn't be tolerating that.
So 637 signatures, and if you collect them, they're presented to whom? To the town clerk?
They go to the registrar of voters,
Okay.
and they validate the signatures. So they've
Okay.
got a process they go through.
Okay.
We can then work with them on the signatures they can't validate.
All right.
And when you get over the 637, that's when they certify to the state that you're a candidate.
And that is, you have a due date, unless extended by a court, of August 8th.
Right.
And today's the 3rd.
Today's the 3rd, so I've got 5 more days basically. And even if even if we get to a point where we haven't had a hearing, we'll get a sense of where we are, but we may just keep going because honestly, we may get to a court date later and the judge might say, you know what, that's right, we will extend. And they'll hear argument, and that's where we'll be.
Peter Bernstein, thank you very much for coming in today.
Well, appreciate you having me.
Thank you very much for being a person who is willing to volunteer in public life in the town. You know, one of the struggles, and I know this from my own town, year after year, is getting good candidates to run. It's a struggle. And you have extraordinary qualifications, but even people with far less impressive qualifications, if they have the heart and the head to run, that's why our towns work so well. They work so well because people are willing to volunteer their time for nothing to go to meetings that run into 2 a.m., to deal with anxious neighbors, to negotiate union contracts, to do all of it. So thank you for being part of this community and for your service for the last 4 years at a minimum.
Well, thank you. And, Greenwich is a town that runs on volunteers.
Yes,
It really does. And I don't want anybody to be discouraged. I hope that this is not the norm, that this is the exception. And honestly, that people speak up loudly against this, that they talk about it with their kids. I've had to have this discussion with my children.
How old are they?
They are 12 and almost 10.
Oh, that's perfect age.
But not an easy discussion to have
Yeah,
with
but
them.
it's great. It's great for them.
Oh, absolutely.
I bet they're your biggest fans running around town to get petitions.
My kids come at least to one Board of Ed meeting every year. They come and they see the sausage getting made.
Will you vote for my dad? Will you vote for... Who could say no? Will you sign this for my dad? Will you let my dad be on the ballot? Who's going to say no to your kids?
I don't know that they'd vote for me. I hope they would. But, maybe they'll have a chance in November.
Thank you, Peter. Peter Bernstein on the Lisa Wexler Show. Let's go to traffic and weather.